In the dark expanse of the Andromeda sector, the stars twinkled like scattered diamonds against the black void. A small exploration vessel, the horizon's edge, drifted quietly. Its captain, Emma Voss, stared intently at a flickering console screen. The faint signal she had been tracking for hours was weak, barely distinguishable from background noise, but it was undeniably artificial. Something, or someone, was out there. The ship's AI, Vega, interrupted her thoughts. Captain, the signal originates from an uncharted celestial body. Scans indicate remnants of structures, potentially non-human in origin. Emma leaned forward. Her heart raced not from fear, but from the thrill of discovery. The galaxy was vast, and humanity was a young player on its stage. Encounters with alien civilizations were rare, and finding any trace of life was significant. Prepare for descent, she ordered, her voice steady but tinged with anticipation. As the ship broke through the atmosphere of the barren planet, Emma peered out at a desolate landscape. Jagged rock formations stretched endlessly, and a thin, pale light illuminated the surface. The signal grew stronger, guiding them to a cluster of decaying structures partially buried in ash. A harsh wind howled against the ship as it landed, kicking up a storm of dust. Donning her exosuit, Emma stepped out into the alien world. The air was unbreathable, the atmosphere hostile, but she pressed on. She followed the signal to a structure that appeared to be a collapsed dome, its metallic frame corroded by time. Inside, the source of the transmission came into view, a small, cylindrical pod surrounded by a dim blue glow. Emma's brow furrowed as she approached the device. Its design was intricate, unlike anything she had seen before. As she wiped away a layer of ash, a holographic interface flickered to life. Symbols and patterns danced before her, incomprehensible yet strangely elegant. Vega, can you translate this? She asked. Working on it, Vega replied. After a moment, the AI added, the inscriptions suggest this is a cryostasis chamber. Life signs detected within, very faint. Emma's breath caught. Cryostasis chambers were not uncommon among advanced civilizations, but finding one still functional was extraordinary. She hesitated. Protocol dictated she report the find to her employers, who would then notify Galactic authorities. But Emma knew how such discoveries were often exploited. Artifacts and beings of alien origin became commodities, stripped of their significance and dignity. Her hand hovered over the console. Vega, what are the chances this life form can survive revival? Probability is high if immediate medical intervention is provided, the AI responded. Emma made her decision. Begin revival procedures. Prepare the med bay. The process was slow and delicate. As the pod opened, a figure was revealed inside, curled and fragile. Its appearance was unlike any creature Emma had seen, tall and slender, with shimmering, iridescent skin that seemed to reflect the faint light in the chamber. Its eyes remained closed, its breathing shallow but steady. Emma carefully transported the being back to the ship, her mind racing with questions. Who were they? How long had they been here? And why were they alone? Hours later, in the safety of the med bay, the alien stirred. Its large, luminous eyes fluttered open, taking in its surroundings with a mixture of confusion and fear. Emma raised her hands in a universal gesture of peace. It's okay. You're safe, she said softly, unsure if it would understand her. To her surprise, the alien responded in a halting but intelligible voice. Who are you? I'm Captain Emma Voss. I found you on the surface. Can you tell me your name? The alien hesitated before speaking. I am Kar, the last of my kind. The weight of those words settled over Emma like a heavy cloak. The last? She repeated. Kar nodded weakly. My people, the Xkarn. We were hunted, driven to extinction. I was preserved to ensure our memory would not be lost. But I feared no one would ever find me. Emma's heart ached at the despair in Kar's voice. She couldn't imagine the pain of being the sole survivor of an entire species. You're not alone anymore, she said firmly. I'll do whatever I can to help you. Kar studied her, their expression unreadable. Why? Why would you, a human, risk yourself for me? Emma paused, searching for the right words. Because it's the right thing to do. Humanity hasn't always made the best choices, but we've learned from our mistakes. If we can't protect the vulnerable, what's the point of exploring the stars? Carr seemed to consider this, their gaze softening. You are different. Most would not have shown such compassion. Emma offered a small smile. Maybe it's time the galaxy saw a different side of us. As the ship prepared to leave the desolate planet, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that her decision would have far-reaching consequences. But for now, she focused on the fragile life she had saved, determined to ensure that Nkara's story, and the legacy of the Skarn, would not be forgotten. The news of Captain Emma Voss's actions spread through the galaxy faster than she anticipated. Somewhere in the vast network of surveillance satellites and corporate information hubs, her ship's logs had been intercepted. The details were damning. A human explorer reviving the last known member of a species long thought extinct. To some, it was an act of defiance and hubris, to others, a beacon of hope. The galaxy was polarized. On the command deck of the Horizon's Edge, Emma sat with her head in her hands as Vega listed off the latest communications. Multiple factions have issued public statements. The corporate syndicates demand the immediate handover of Nkar, citing territorial claims over the system where they were discovered. The Isolationist Alliance accuses you of reckless endangerment of humanity. The Human Exploration Coalition is divided. Emma clenched her fists. What about the independent worlds? Anyone backing us? Some, Vega replied. A small contingent of scientists and preservationists have expressed support. However, their influence is minimal compared to the larger factions. Nkar stood nearby, their tall frame almost seeming to blend with the dim lighting of the ship. Their voice was calm, but there was an edge of sadness to it. This controversy is my fault. If I had remained in stasis, you would not be in danger. Emma straightened, shaking her head. No, this isn't your fault. The galaxy's reaction isn't about you, it's about fear and control. They're afraid of what you represent. And what is that? Nkar asked, their luminous eyes fixed on her. Hope, Emma replied simply. You're living proof that not everything is lost, that even in the darkest times, there's still something worth fighting for. Nkar lowered their gaze, seemingly lost in thought. My people once believed in unity, in the power of collaboration. It was why we were destroyed. Those who sought control feared us. Emma's resolve hardened. Then it's time to prove them wrong. The ship's communication array lit up with an incoming transmission. Emma hesitated before accepting it. A stern-faced representative of the corporate syndicates appeared on the holoscreen, flanked by advisors in gleaming uniforms. His voice was cold and calculated. Captain Voss, you are ordered to surrender the Skarn survivor into our custody. Failure to comply will result in immediate escalation. Emma's jaw tightened. Nkar is not property to be handed over. They are a sentient being with rights. The representative's expression didn't change. This is not a matter of sentimentality, Captain. The Skarn were a dangerous species, their knowledge capable of destabilizing established orders. For the safety of the galaxy, this individual must be contained. Contained, Emma echoed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You mean exploited, dissected, and forgotten? The representative leaned closer to the camera, his tone icy. You have 36 hours to comply. After that, we will not be so lenient. The transmission ended abruptly. Vega broke the silence. Hostile ships are already en route. Their estimated time of arrival matches the deadline. Emma turned to Nkar. We don't have much time. If they get their hands on you... Carr interrupted, their voice steady. Then everything my people fought for will be lost. Emma exhaled sharply, her mind racing. We need allies. Someone who can stand with us against these corporations and isolationists. Vega, who's still neutral in all of this? Several independent systems have yet to take a side, the AI replied. However, their resources are limited, and their political weight is negligible. It's better than nothing, Emma said. Send out a discreet message. We'll meet with anyone willing to listen. As the ship altered course, the weight of the galaxy's scrutiny bore down on everyone aboard. Emma's crew, loyal but apprehensive, voiced their concerns in hushed tones. "Captain, are we sure about this?" one of them asked. "Taking on the syndicates, it's suicide." Emma met their gaze, her voice firm but empathetic. "I won't force anyone to stay. If you want to leave, you'll have my blessing. But I can't turn my back on this. Car deserves a chance, and so does every species that's been crushed under the weight of greed and fear." To her relief, no one chose to abandon ship. Meanwhile, Car and Emma spent hours in quiet conversation, sharing stories of their respective peoples. Car spoke of the Skarnes Golden Age, their advances in art, philosophy, and diplomacy. "We believed that understanding was the key to peace," they said, their voice tinged with melancholy. "But understanding requires trust, and trust is a fragile thing." Emma shared humanity's own struggles, the wars, the divisions, and the eventual realization that survival required cooperation. "We're far from perfect," she admitted. "But we've learned. At least, some of us have." Their bond grew stronger with each passing moment, forged in shared ideals and mutual respect. Emma saw in Car a kindred spirit, someone who, despite unimaginable loss, still clung to hope. Car, in turn, found in Emma a rare example of humanity's potential for compassion and bravery. The tension reached a breaking point as the Horizon's Edge entered the orbit of a neutral station in one of the independent systems. Ships from various factions loomed in the distance, their presence a reminder of the stakes. Emma sent out her message, hoping against hope that someone would answer. To her surprise, a small group of representatives from independent worlds responded. They boarded the ship cautiously, their expressions wary but curious. "You've stirred quite the controversy, Captain Voss," one of them said. "Why should we risk our neutrality for this alien?" Emma didn't flinch. "Because Nkar represents more than just a dying species. They're a chance for us to be better, to break the cycle of destruction and start building something worthwhile." Nkar stepped forward, their voice steady despite the weight of countless eyes on them. "My people made mistakes. We underestimated the capacity for fear and greed. But we also believed in the potential for unity, for understanding. That belief is all I have left. I ask you not as Ixcarn, but as a being who simply wishes to exist. Help us." The room fell silent. Some of the representatives exchanged uncertain glances, while others seemed moved by the plea. Finally, one of them spoke. "We'll support you. But understand, Captain, that this is a risk we cannot take lightly. The galaxy will not forgive us if we fail." Emma nodded. "Then let's make sure we don't." As the Horizon's Edge prepared to leave the station, the tension aboard the ship remained palpable. The galaxy was watching, and the choices made in the coming days would ripple across the stars. Emma knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. They were no longer alone. The sound of proximity alarms echoed through the halls of the Horizon's Edge as Vega's calm, synthetic voice delivered grim news. "Multiple hostile ships are on an intercept course. They will reach us in 20 minutes." Emma stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the holographic display showing a cluster of red blips converging on their position. The corporate syndicates weren't bluffing. They were coming to claim Car, and they weren't coming alone. "Divert all power to engines," Emma ordered, her voice steady. "We need to outrun them." "Captain," Vega replied. "Their ships are faster and better armed. Evading them will require creative maneuvers, but the odds of success are minimal." Emma glanced at Nkar, who stood silently at the edge of the room, their shimmering skin reflecting the glow of the holograms. "Any suggestions?" she asked, half joking. Nkar's luminous eyes met hers. "In my time, we often used decoys to mislead hostile forces. If we could create a distraction." Emma's lips twitched into a faint smile. "I like the way you think. Vega, deploy a distress beacon program to simulate our signal. Launch it toward the asteroid field." As the plan took shape, the crew moved with practiced efficiency. The beacon was ejected into space, its signal mimicking that of the horizon's edge. The hostile ships diverted course, chasing the decoy into the dense asteroid belt. Emma let out a breath of relief, but it was short-lived. They'll figure out the ruse soon enough. We need to keep moving. The ship jumped to subspace, temporarily leaving their pursuers behind. But Emma knew this was just the beginning. The syndicates wouldn't give up so easily. They were too powerful, too relentless. Every move she made would need to be calculated, and every ally she found would be vital. After a tense hour, the ship emerged near a sparsely populated system known for its independent researchers and scientific enclaves. Emma's hope was that someone here would lend assistance. They docked at an orbital station, its structure old but functional, a relic of a time when exploration was a nobler pursuit. A small delegation greeted them, their expressions wary. "Captain Voss," one of them said, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a voice that carried authority. "We've heard of your predicament. Why bring your troubles here?" Emma didn't waste time. "Because you're one of the few who still believe in the value of knowledge and cooperation. Kar isn't just a survivor, they're a living record of a lost civilization. Helping us isn't just the right thing to do, it's a chance to preserve something incredible." The woman studied Kar, who stood tall but silent. Finally, she nodded. "We'll help you for now. But understand, the syndicates won't hesitate to target us for this. Your fight puts all of us at risk." "Understood," Emma said. "And thank you." The researchers provided much-needed supplies and upgrades to the horizon's edge, but their help came with sobering news. "The syndicates have declared you an enemy of the galaxy," the woman informed Emma. "Anyone caught aiding you will face severe consequences. You're not just protecting Kar anymore, you're starting a movement, whether you intended to or not." Back aboard the ship, Emma gathered her crew and Kar. The weight of their situation was heavy in the room. "We've got two choices," Emma began. "We can keep running, hiding until the syndicates give up, which, let's be honest, they won't. Or we can make a stand." One of the crew members spoke up, nervous but resolute. "If we stand, what's the plan? We're one ship against an empire." Emma looked at Kar, who had remained silent. "You've been quiet," she said. "What's on your mind?" Kar stepped forward, their voice steady and calm. "When my people faced extinction, we made one critical mistake: we underestimated the power of unity. We tried to survive alone, and we failed. If we are to stand, we must bring others with us, those who share our values, those who understand what is at stake." Emma nodded slowly. "You're right. But we need to act quickly. Every moment we wait, the syndicates tighten their grip." The crew began working tirelessly, reaching out to sympathetic contacts, spreading word of their cause. Emma and Kar drafted messages to independent systems, alien species, and even factions within humanity that had grown disillusioned with corporate greed and isolationism. Their efforts bore fruit. Small pockets of resistance responded, offering support in the form of supplies, intelligence, and most importantly, ships. The movement was fragile, held together by shared ideals and a desire to resist the galaxy's powerful oppressors. But it was enough to give them hope. Meanwhile, the syndicates grew increasingly aggressive. Their fleet tracked down the decoy beacon and resumed their pursuit of the horizon's edge. Emma and her allies prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The ship's crew worked around the clock, fortifying defenses and strategizing for the battle ahead. Tension filled the air as the syndicate's fleet finally caught up to them near the border of a neutral zone. Emma knew they couldn't run any longer. "This is it," she said to her crew. "We stand here." As the syndicate ships closed in, Emma took one last look at Kar. "Whatever happens, we do this together." Kar nodded. Together. The galaxy watched as the small coalition led by the horizon's edge prepared to face the overwhelming force of the syndicates. The stage was set for a confrontation that would not only decide the fate of one alien survivor but also challenge the very foundations of galactic power. The syndicate fleet emerged from subspace, their massive warships dwarfing the coalition of smaller vessels assembled by Emma and her allies. The void crackled with tension as the two sides faced each other in a standoff that seemed to stretch for an eternity. The Syndicate flagship broadcasted a transmission, its commanding officer's voice cold and authoritarian. "Captain Voss, you and your insurgent allies are ordered to surrender immediately. Hand over the Xkarn and disband your forces. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." Emma stood tall on the bridge of the horizon's edge, her eyes fixed on the enemy fleet displayed on the holographic interface. Her crew waited in tense silence for her response. Finally, she stepped forward, activating the communication array. "This isn't just about Nkar," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "This is about standing against the unchecked greed and fear that have strangled this galaxy for too long. We're not surrendering." The Syndicate officer sneered. "You're outnumbered and outgunned. This rebellion is nothing more than a futile gesture." "Maybe," Emma replied. "But sometimes, even a futile gesture can spark something bigger." She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. "Prepare for engagement. Vega, relay the plan to our allies." The coalition ships formed a defensive perimeter around the horizon's edge, their formations tighter and more coordinated than the Syndicate's anticipated. The battle began with a flurry of energy blasts and missile fire. Despite their smaller size, Emma's forces used their agility and knowledge of the terrain to their advantage, weaving through the chaos and striking vulnerable points on the Syndicate ships. Nkar stood beside Emma on the bridge, their glowing eyes scanning the tactical display. "Your allies are brave," they said. "But bravery alone will not win this battle." Emma nodded. "We're buying time. Every second we hold them off, more systems will see what's happening here. They'll see that standing up is possible." As the battle raged on, the Syndicates began to press their advantage, their superior firepower taking its toll on the coalition fleet. One by one, Allied ships were disabled or destroyed. Emma clenched her fists, feeling the weight of every loss. "We can't hold out much longer," one of her crew warned. Carr stepped forward, their voice calm but firm. "There is another way." Emma turned to them, her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Carr hesitated, then spoke. "The Xkarn developed technologies that were never shared with the galaxy. One of them is a device that can disrupt energy-based systems across a wide area. It could neutralize their fleet." Emma's eyes widened. "Why didn't you mention this before?" "Because it is dangerous," Carr said. "The device is unstable. Using it could destroy us as well." Emma considered the stakes. They were out of options, and the Syndicates showed no signs of relenting. "Do we have the components to build it?" Carr nodded. "Yes, but it will take time." "Then let's make it happen," Emma said, determination hardening her voice. "We'll hold them off as long as we can." Under Carr's guidance, the crew worked frantically to assemble the device. Meanwhile, the coalition ships fought valiantly, their sacrifices buying precious minutes. Emma coordinated the defense with precision, her tactical mind keeping the Syndicates at bay despite the odds. When the device was ready, Carr explained its operation. "Once activated, it will emit a burst that disrupts all energy systems within its radius. That includes our own. We must be prepared for the aftermath." Emma nodded, her jaw set. "Do it." Carr activated the device. A pulse of blinding light radiated outward, engulfing the battlefield. The Syndicate ships, caught off guard, faltered as their systems shut down. Weapons powered down, engines stalled, and the oppressive hum of their fleet fell silent. On the horizon's edge, the lights flickered and died, plunging the ship into darkness. Emergency power kicked in moments later, illuminating the bridge with a dim red glow. Emma stared at the holographic display, now frozen, showing the Syndicate fleet dead in space. "Vega status?" she asked. "Systems offline," the AI replied. "The Syndicate fleet appears to be immobilized." Cheers erupted from the crew, but Emma raised a hand to quiet them. "This isn't over. We need to regroup and make sure the Syndicates can't recover." Over the next few hours, Emma coordinated with her allies, helping to evacuate survivors and salvage what they could. The Syndicates, humiliated and powerless, were forced to retreat, their fleet unable to continue the fight. The battle was over, but the war for the galaxy's future was just beginning. In the aftermath, messages poured in from across the galaxy. Independent systems declared their support for Emma's cause, inspired by her defiance and Kar's message of unity. Even factions within the syndicates began to question their allegiance, seeing the cracks in the oppressive system they upheld. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Emma stood beside Kar, gazing out at the stars. "This is just the beginning," she said. "There's a long road ahead." Kar nodded, their expression unreadable but their voice filled with quiet resolve. "Your people have a saying, do they not? The darkest night comes before the dawn. Perhaps this is our dawn." Emma smiled faintly. "Perhaps it is." As the ship prepared to jump to its next destination, Emma felt a flicker of hope. The galaxy was vast, its challenges immense, but for the first time, it felt like they weren't facing it alone. Together they would fight for a better future, one step, one star system, one act of courage at a time.